Viralia had once been a world of beauty and life. Its oceans shimmered like liquid silver under the twin suns. Forests stretched across continents in endless green, and cities of glass and metal reached proudly toward the sky. But that was a long time ago. Now the planet was dying. Smoke and ash choked the skies, turning day into a dim orange gloom. Rivers had dried to cracked beds, and the ground itself was splitting apart, swallowing towns whole. The Virelians, a proud and intelligent species, had watched their home crumble for decades. Crops failed. Water became poison. The air carried disease like an invisible predator. The leaders of Viralia had gathered in the last standing hall of the capital city, its walls scarred and pitted from years of storms and earthquakes. They spoke quietly, voices heavy with despair. There were only a few of them left, scientists, politicians, and military officers, but they carried the weight of an entire planet on their shoulders. Soon, "Nothing will survive," said Kalen, the eldest of the council. His antennae twitched nervously. "If we do not act now, all will be lost. Our children. Our history. It will vanish." Lyra, a young diplomat, stepped forward. Her heart pounded, but she spoke with resolve. "We must reach out. There is no shame in asking for help. Somewhere among the stars, perhaps life exists that can save us." The council debated for hours. Sending a message into the void was a gamble. They had no way of knowing if anyone would hear them, or worse, if they did, would they answer with kindness or with conquest? But time had run out. Finally, Kalen nodded. "Then we send the call," he said. "Not as beggars, but as survivors seeking allies. Let our voices reach the stars. Let them decide if we are worthy of life." The Virelians worked tirelessly to craft a message. It was simple, but it carried the essence of everything they had lost. Their history, their culture, their desperation. Lyra typed the final words into the transmitter, her hands trembling. "We are Viralia. Our world dies. We seek refuge. Please help us." The signal was weak, fragile, drifting through the emptiness of space. It left Viralia like a tiny, desperate whisper, hurtling toward the unknown. Days passed. The Virelians stared at the dark sky, counting each fading star, wondering if any would answer. Meanwhile, across the vast void of space, humans detected the signal. On Earth, the message appeared as a strange pattern of data on a network monitored by a coalition of scientists and space agencies. At first, they were unsure what it meant. It was like nothing they had ever received. A team of linguists and astrophysicists worked frantically to decode it, piecing together the desperate plea from a distant world. When the meaning became clear, there was a long silence in the room. "They are asking for help," one scientist whispered, almost afraid to say it aloud. Others nodded, their faces pale with the realization that another civilization was reaching out for salvation. Governments argued. Military leaders feared a trap, worried that it might be an alien trick. But the scientists insisted. "Look at the words," one said. "This is not a threat. This is desperation. They are dying. We have a chance to save lives." The decision came slowly, but it came. Earth would respond. And they would respond not with caution, but with strength. They would send soldiers to protect, engineers to rebuild, and fire from the sky to clear the dead and poisoned lands. The humans did not yet know what awaited them on Viralia, but they knew this. When life called, humanity answered. On Viralia, Lyra watched the sky night after night, hoping for a sign. Then, on the 5th cycle after their message was sent, a small shimmer appeared among the stars. At first she thought it was a trick of her tired eyes, but it grew brighter, moving closer, and then the entire city shook as a roar split the air. The Virelians looked up in fear and awe. Ships unlike anything they had imagined descended from the heavens, their hulls gleaming, engines roaring with controlled fury. Fire trailed behind them like molten ribbons in the sky. The people screamed, but not all in terror. Somewhere deep inside, Lyra felt a strange warmth, a flicker of hope she had thought was gone forever. This is real," she whispered, gripping the railing of the observation tower. "They are coming. They heard us." They came for us. And so, on the brink of extinction, the Varelians realized something extraordinary. In the darkest hour, when hope seemed lost, the universe could answer. The beings who would soon step onto their world carried not just technology and weapons, but something far more powerful, the courage, determination, and heart of humanity. Lyra's heart swelled. Perhaps we are not finished after all. The sky burned with light. Varelians stared in awe as the human ships cut through the atmosphere, their massive engines leaving streaks of molten fire in their wake. Buildings trembled under the roar, and the ground itself seemed to pulse with the energy of their arrival. Some Varelians fell to their knees, overcome with fear, while others simply froze, unable to comprehend the sight. Lyra stood at the edge of the city's ruined square, her heart pounding in her chest. Her antennae twitched nervously as she watched the first ships touch down. Dust and smoke billowed around them as the landing struts crushed the cracked pavement. And then from the enormous doors of the ships they emerged. Humans. Soldiers, tall and disciplined, stepped out in perfect formation. Their armor gleamed under the dim sun, and weapons hung at their sides, not pointed at the Varelians, but ready for protection. Behind them came engineers, carrying strange tools and machines that hummed with power. Lyra could not begin to imagine what they were capable of. They moved with confidence, setting up devices that purified water, filtered the air, and scanned the ground for unstable areas. The Varelians watched in silent astonishment. These beings were not here to conquer, they were here to save. Then came the fire. At first, panic spread through the crowd. Great jets of flame shot from the ships into the surrounding ruins. Varelians cried out, assuming the humans were attacking. But Lyra, guided by some instinct she could not name, ran closer to watch. The flames did not burn indiscriminately. They consumed only the twisted metal, the broken machines, and the contaminated soil. They melted debris that threatened to collapse buildings, cleared poisoned rivers, and even ignited pockets of gas that could have exploded at any moment. "They are cleaning," Lyra whispered, barely able to believe it. Her voice shook with a mixture of fear and hope. "They are saving us." With fire, a human soldier noticed her and stepped forward. He held up his hands in a gesture of peace. His voice, amplified by a small device, rang out in perfect Varelian. "Do not be afraid. We are here to help. We will protect your people and your world." For many Varelians, this moment was almost too much to bear. Generations of pride, fear, and loss collided inside them. And yet, despite their shock, a seed of hope began to grow. Perhaps this was the miracle they had been waiting for. Perhaps the beings of Earth were not just powerful. They were compassionate. Not all Varelians trusted the humans immediately. Some whispered to each other in the shadows, questioning every move. "Why do they come with weapons?" one elder asked. "Are they spies? Invaders?" Lyra shook her head. She had already seen what the humans were capable of. Saving a child trapped under rubble, carrying the sick to safe zones, purifying poisoned water for entire districts. "No," she said quietly. "This is not fear. This is courage, and this is hope." Over the next hours, the humans worked tirelessly. Soldiers patrolled the streets, ensuring the safety of civilians. Engineers activated machines that began repairing roads and buildings, while others constructed shelters for those who had lost their homes. Fire rained from the ships again and again, each time carefully controlled, destroying only the hazards, making the city safer instead of threatening it. Lyra moved among the Varelians, seeing faces that reflected the same mixture of awe and fear. Children clung to their parents, eyes wide as flames burned away the poison around them. Elderly Varelians wept openly, overwhelmed by the realization that someone had come to save them. As the day passed, a new rhythm emerged. Humans and Varelians worked side by side, though cautiously. The humans taught the Varelians how to operate their machines, how to move rubble safely, and how to purify water and soil. In return, the Varelians shared what they knew of their world, its weaknesses, its dangers, and its beauty. By nightfall, the city looked different. Though scars of destruction remained, hope had taken root. Fires from the human ships had cleared deadly debris, soldiers had set up protective perimeters, and engineers had begun rebuilding what had been lost. Lyra walked through the streets, seeing humans and Varelians working together, a fragile but growing bond forming under the twin suns. She paused at the edge of a square, looking up at the ships hovering in the sky. Their lights glowed like stars, and the fire from their engines seemed less frightening now, more like a guardian's flame. She whispered to herself, a mix of relief and wonder in her voice. They came for us. They really came for us. Somewhere deep in her chest, Lyra felt something she had not felt in years. Hope. The humans from Earth were not just strangers, they were saviors, and their arrival was the beginning of something extraordinary. Something that could change the fate of her world forever. And as the stars blinked above, she realized that Varelia's story was no longer one of death and despair. The story had changed. Fire from the sky was no longer a threat. It was the spark of life itself. Not all Varelians welcomed the humans with open hearts. In the ruins of the old city, whispers of doubt spread like wildfire. They are not here to help, some muttered. They are here to take what remains. Fear clung to them like a heavy cloak, built over generations of watching their world die. And yet everywhere they looked, the humans acted differently than expected. Lyra moved through the streets cautiously, observing both the humans and her own people. Soldiers patrolled with careful precision, never raising weapons unnecessarily, always keeping civilians safe. Engineers lifted heavy debris, repaired broken buildings, and purified water for everyone. Fire still came from the sky, but it was controlled, purposeful, not destructive. Despite these signs, mistrust lingered. Families hid behind shattered walls, eyes wide with suspicion. Children clutched their parents, unsure whether to cry in relief or fear. Old Varelians whispered warnings of betrayal and deceit. It was understandable. After all, their world had been betrayed by disease, disaster, and neglect for so long. In the midst of this tension, Lyra met a human soldier named Marcus. His uniform was scuffed and worn, his face lined with exhaustion, yet his eyes carried kindness. He knelt beside a Varelian child trapped under a collapsed wall, speaking softly in their language while lifting the rubble carefully. The child's tears turned to quiet sobs of relief as Marcus handed them to a nurse. Lyra's heart ached watching the scene. She realized that action spoke louder than words. Humans were not here to conquer, they were here to save. Yet, convincing her people of this truth would be harder than any battle. The first confrontation came in the northern district. A small group of Varelians, armed with old tools and anger, attempted to drive humans away. They shouted, waving weapons and demanding that the strangers leave. The soldiers did not retaliate with force. Instead, they formed a protective barrier around the civilians and spoke calmly, explaining their purpose. Lyra watched from a distance, her chest tight with tension. Then she saw it, the turning point. One of the Varelian attackers slipped on rubble and fell, twisting an ankle. Without hesitation, a human soldier rushed forward, lifting the injured Varelian gently, carrying them to safety. No weapon was drawn. No insult was spoken. Only care gasps spread through the crowd. Slowly, some of the attackers lowered their weapons, their eyes wide with disbelief. Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady but trembling. "Look at what they do, not what they are," she said. "These humans, they are saving us. They are protecting us when we cannot protect ourselves." The days that followed were filled with small miracles. Soldiers helped rebuild homes destroyed by storms. Engineers purified water and rebuilt hospitals, teaching Varelians how to maintain the machines. Children, once fearful of the strange newcomers, began following them through the streets, laughing and asking questions. Lyra became a bridge between the two worlds. She guided humans through dangerous districts, explaining the perils of collapsed buildings and unstable ground. In return, humans taught her techniques to save lives faster, to purify larger areas of land, and to keep civilians safe during storms. One night, as the twin suns set behind the mountains, Lyra sat with Marcus by a small fire humans had built for warmth. Why do you help us? She asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Marcus looked into the dying flames, his voice calm and sincere. Because life is worth saving, he said. Every species, every person. They deserve a chance. You have hope now. And that is enough reason for us to fight for you. Lyra felt tears prick her eyes. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe. Perhaps Virelia could survive. Perhaps her people could live to see the oceans full again. Forests green, skies clear. Trust, however, would not come quickly. Some elders still whispered warnings. Some families still hid. And some eyes watched every move of the humans with suspicion. Lyra understood. Fear dies slowly, especially in a world that had seen so much death. But the humans had begun planting seeds, not just of repair, but of faith. One afternoon, a violent storm tore through the city. Fierce winds threatened to collapse the partially rebuilt buildings, and flooding began to consume the streets. Panic spread and Virelians froze, unsure where to go. But the humans acted immediately. Soldiers guided civilians to safe zones, engineers deployed barriers, and fire from the ships burned away debris that could have crushed the city. Lyra watched in awe as humans and Virelians worked side by side, fear slowly giving way to cooperation. A child shouted in delight as they were lifted onto a safe platform by a human, laughing even as the rain poured down. Lyra smiled, realizing that trust was growing, one small act of courage at a time. By nightfall, the storm had passed. The humans and Virelians sat together among the ruins, wet and exhausted but alive. Lyra looked around at the faces illuminated by lanterns and the fires of human machines. Some were smiling. Some were still unsure, but a spark of hope burned in every eye. For the first time, Lyra allowed herself to dream. Perhaps Virelia could be reborn. Perhaps the humans from Earth were more than saviors. They were a promise that even in the darkest hour, life could endure. And as the stars appeared above, glittering like tiny fires in the black sky, she whispered, maybe we are not alone in this universe after all. The days after the storm brought quiet reflection. The city, though battered, began to feel alive again. Virelians walked among humans, watching how they moved, how they spoke, and how they worked. Curiosity replaced fear for many, though hesitation still lingered in some hearts. Lyra was chosen to guide a team of humans through the northern districts, where buildings had been most damaged. She led them carefully along cracked streets and collapsed walls, pointing out unstable structures and hidden dangers. The humans listened, noting every detail with precision. Their attention to even the smallest detail amazed her. As they worked, Lyra watched them closely. She saw a young engineer lift a fallen beam from a collapsed school, then calmly instruct a group of Virelian children on how to safely clear the rubble. Another soldier carried water to a family trapped in a flooded alley, speaking soothing words in perfect Virelian. Every gesture, no matter how small, carried patience, care, and determination. It was during one of these missions that Lyra began to understand the true nature of these humans. They did not simply act because they were ordered to. They acted because they chose to care. It was not duty alone, it was empathy. It was courage intertwined with compassion, a combination she had never witnessed before. One evening, as they rested near a damaged fountain, Lyra watched the humans set up a temporary shelter for those who had lost their homes. The sun was low in the sky, casting a golden glow on the ruins. Marcus, the soldier she had met before, sat nearby, cleaning a small wound on a Virelian child's arm. "Why do you help us?" Lyra asked again softly. She had asked many times before, but she wanted to understand truly the heart of Earth's people. Marcus paused, looking at her with tired but kind eyes. "Because some things are bigger than planets, species, or wars," he said. "Life, hope, courage. Sometimes doing what is right is enough. Saving one life can change everything." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest. The words were simple, but their meaning was vast. Humans valued life, not just their own, but all life. They did not seek power or glory. They sought to protect, to heal, to make a difference, even on a planet they had never seen before. As the days passed, Lyra saw more lessons in humanity. She watched humans instruct Varelians in rebuilding techniques, teaching them how to purify water faster, stabilize buildings, and redirect dangerous rivers. They shared knowledge freely, expecting nothing in return. Soldiers trained Varelians in safety and defense, not to dominate, but to protect their own communities. Engineers adapted their machines to Varelia's unique environment, learning from the Varelians as much as they taught them. Even the smallest actions left a deep impression. A human gently comforted a grieving family, sharing a blanket and offering words of hope. Another rescued a trapped animal, carrying it carefully back to its weakened habitat. Lyra began to understand that Earth's strength was not just in their machines or weapons, but in their hearts. For Lyra, the greatest lesson came one quiet night, when she walked alone through a restored district. The streets, though still scarred, were lit by human machines that glowed softly, casting warmth over the rubble. She saw children playing near the temporary shelters, laughing as humans joined in their games. Soldiers, engineers, and volunteers sat nearby, talking quietly with Varelian families. Lyra realized something profound. Hope was contagious. Humans had brought more than tools and fire. They had brought the belief that life was worth fighting for. Even in a world that had almost surrendered to despair, hope could flourish again. That night she returned to the council hall, her mind buzzing with ideas. She spoke to the elders and leaders, recounting the lessons she had witnessed. "They do not come to rule us," she said. "They come to teach, to save, to show us that life is precious. If we listen, if we work with them, we can survive, and perhaps even thrive." Some elders still hesitated, but many nodded slowly. Lyra could see the shift in their hearts. Fear was fading, replaced by curiosity and cautious trust. Humans were not perfect, and neither were Varelians, but together, they could learn from each other. As the twin suns set, Lyra looked up at the stars once more. Human ships hovered silently above, their lights a reminder of the beings who had crossed the galaxy to save them. She whispered to herself, her voice trembling with hope and gratitude. "They are teaching us not just to survive, but to live again." And somewhere in the night, as Virelia slept beneath the careful watch of human guardians, the first seeds of a new future were planted, one where courage, compassion, and life itself would guide the way forward. The sky darkened suddenly, and an eerie wind swept through the streets of Virelia. Clouds of black and gray rolled across the twin suns, and rain fell in sheets, lashing against the broken buildings. This storm was unlike anything the Varelians had ever seen. Floodwaters surged through the streets, carrying debris that could crush anything in its path. Trees were uprooted, walls collapsed, and the air was filled with a deafening roar of wind, water, and chaos. Lyra stood in the center of the city, heart pounding. She could hear the terrified cries of families trapped in the rising flood. "We won't survive this alone," she whispered, fear rising in her chest. But she did not have long to despair. From the sky a brilliant light appeared. The human ships, massive and glowing, descended rapidly, their engines blazing. Jets of fire erupted, cutting through dangerous debris, clearing streets and melting broken structures that blocked escape routes. The humans had come prepared, but even Lyra could not fully comprehend the power they brought. Soldiers jumped from the ships into the storm, moving with precision and courage. They waded through floodwaters, carrying children and the elderly to safety. Engineers deployed machines that created temporary barriers, redirecting the water and preventing the city from being swept away. Lyra followed them, guiding people through narrow alleys and unstable ruins, her own fear set aside by determination. The storm raged on, and yet the humans did not falter. Marcus, drenched and exhausted, shouted orders to coordinate rescue efforts. His voice cut through the wind, clear and unwavering. "Move together. Watch each other. Protect the people first." His words carried authority but also reassurance. Lyra watched him save a small child from being swept away, lifting them into his arms despite the raging torrent. Nearby, an engineer activated a device that emitted a protective barrier of energy, shielding a collapsed district long enough for families to escape. Firellians who had once doubted these humans now ran without hesitation toward the safe zones, following their guidance. Fear was still there, but trust was stronger. Lyra herself rescued an elderly Firellian trapped beneath a fallen beam. She struggled to lift it, but a soldier appeared beside her without a word, and together they freed the elder. She looked up, her heart pounding with gratitude and amazement. "Why do you risk yourselves like this?" she asked, rain streaming down her face. The soldier smiled through exhaustion. "Because life is worth it. Every life. Yours, theirs, even ours. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." Hours passed like minutes. The storm did not relent, but slowly, thanks to the humans' relentless efforts, the city began to survive. Streets that would have flooded were cleared. Buildings that would have collapsed were stabilized. Lives that would have been lost were saved. Lyra walked through the drenched streets, helping where she could, but mostly observing. Children clung to human soldiers, laughing despite the rain. Families huddled under tents set up by engineers, grateful for warmth and safety. She realized that hope had become a living thing, rising from the chaos like a flame in the dark. When the storm finally began to subside, Lyra climbed to a high platform and looked over the city. The rivers had returned to their banks, streets were cleared of debris, and the fires from the ships had done their work without destroying life. Firellians, once broken and terrified, were alive, and many were smiling, exhausted but grateful. Lyra turned to Marcus, her eyes wide with emotion. "You saved us. All of us," she said, her voice trembling. I can't thank you enough." He shook his head, tired but calm. "We don't need thanks. Seeing you survive, that's enough. That's why we came." That night, as the rain finally ceased and the skies cleared, the Firellians gathered around the glowing human machines. The twin suns were hidden by clouds, but the lights of the ships shone brightly, casting warmth across the city. Lyra looked at the people around her and realized something profound. Fear had not disappeared completely, but hope had taken root. And it would grow. She walked among the families, seeing children playing with human soldiers, Firellian elders speaking with engineers, and neighbors helping each other for the first time in years. The storm had tested them all, and together they had endured. The humans had shown them that courage and compassion could be stronger than destruction, that fire from the sky could save instead of destroy. As Lyra looked up at the ships hovering above, their engines cooling and light softening, she whispered softly to herself, a tear sliding down her cheek. "They came, and they showed us the way, not just to survive, but to live again." The storm had passed, but its lesson remained. Firellia was still broken, but for the first time the people understood that hope, courage, and life itself could shine even in the darkest hour, and that hope had come riding fire from the sky. Months had passed since the storm, and Firellia was slowly coming back to life. Where once there had been only ruins, small signs of restoration appeared. Streets that had been clogged with debris were now cleared. Trees, carefully replanted by humans and Firellians together, stretched their fragile branches toward the sky. Rivers ran clearer, their poisoned waters cleansed by the engineers' machines. The air smelled sweeter, carrying a hint of hope that had long been absent. Lyra walked through the northern district, amazed at the transformation. Buildings, though not yet complete, were stronger than before. Temporary shelters had been replaced with sturdy homes built side by side by humans and Firellians. Children laughed and played in the streets, their joy echoing off walls that once only echoed sorrow. Everywhere she looked, she saw humans and Firellians working together, side by side, learning from one another. The humans had become more than saviors. They had become teachers, friends, and protectors. Soldiers trained Firellians in safety and rescue. teaching them how to stabilize collapsing structures and tend to the injured. Engineers shared their knowledge freely, showing Varelians how to purify water faster, grow crops in once barren soil, and repair machines that could save countless lives. Each day, trust between the two species grew stronger. Lyra spent much of her time alongside the humans, learning their ways while guiding them through the unique challenges of Virelia. One day, as she helped Marcus install a new water purification system, she asked quietly, "How do you keep going even when it seems impossible?" Marcus wiped sweat and rain from his brow and smiled. "Because giving up isn't an option. We came here to save life, and life doesn't give up. Neither do we." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth of his words deep in her heart. She thought of the families who had survived, the children who now laughed freely, and the elders who could sleep without fear for the first time in years. The humans' courage and dedication had rekindled something inside every Varelian, belief that their world could be restored. In the evenings, Lyra often watched the humans share meals with the Varelians. Soldiers, engineers, and volunteers sat together with families, swapping stories and teaching games. Some Varelians still spoke cautiously, unsure if they could fully trust these strangers from the stars, but most had begun to accept them as part of their community. One evening, as the twin suns set behind the mountains, painting the sky in orange and gold, Lyra stood on a hill overlooking the city. She saw the people below, humans and Varelians rebuilding, laughing, and helping one another. The city sparkled in the fading light, a mixture of hope, determination, and new beginnings. She thought of the moment the humans had arrived, descending with fire from the sky. Back then she had been terrified, unsure if they were saviors or destroyers. Now, standing among a thriving, recovering city, she understood something profound. Earth's people were more than machines and soldiers. They were hope made flesh, courage made real, and love made action. Lyra knelt and placed her hand on the ground, feeling the vibration of life returning to her planet. "We were dying," she whispered. "And now, we live again." The humans had done more than repair the world. They had restored the hearts of its people. Varelians who had once hidden from the ruins now walked proudly through the streets. Children chased each other laughing, soldiers guided them safely, and elders shared stories of survival and courage. Even those who had doubted the humans before now spoke with gratitude and respect. Lyra walked among the rebuilding crews, her eyes misty. She saw Marcus helping a group of children construct a small bridge over a stream, teaching them carefully how to balance beams. Engineers worked alongside Varelians to plant crops in once barren fields, explaining the science behind their machines. The collaboration was seamless, like two halves of a greater whole learning to survive together. In the evenings, when the work was done, Lyra sometimes climbed the hill outside the city. She looked at the stars, and then at the hovering human ships above, lights glowing softly like guardians watching over the city. She felt a quiet gratitude she could not fully express in words. Earth's people had not come as conquerors or rulers. They had come as allies, as friends, and as beacons of hope. Lyra realized that Virelia's survival was no longer a dream. The humans had shown them a path forward, one built on courage, compassion, and trust. The city, the rivers, the forest, and the people were all beginning to heal. And in that healing, Lyra knew something more. Humanity's legacy was not just strength or technology, but its willingness to fight for life itself, no matter where it was found in the universe. As the twin suns disappeared behind the horizon, and stars began to twinkle in the darkening sky, Lyra whispered softly to herself, "We are alive, because they believed in us. We will not forget. We will carry this hope always." And somewhere in the distance, the human ships glimmered above the recovering city, a reminder that Earth's people were not just visitors. They were guardians, teachers, and friends who had given a dying world a second chance. The day had finally come when some of the humans prepared to return home. The ships, gleaming like silver giants against the horizon, were ready to leave the recovering city. Virelians gathered in the streets, a mixture of gratitude, sadness, and awe written across their faces. The air was filled with quiet conversations, soft cries, and tentative smiles. After so many months, humans and Virelians had become more than allies. They had become friends, family even, bound by shared hardship and courage. Lyra stood at the forefront, her heart pounding. She looked at the people around her, children she had helped save, elders she had guided, families who now had hope again. She turned to Marcus, whose uniform was scuffed and wet from the storm months before, and now streaked with dust and sweat from rebuilding. His eyes met hers, tired but calm, carrying the same quiet strength that had first inspired her faith in humanity. "You've given us more than life," Lyra said, her voice trembling. "You've given us hope, courage, the chance to start again." Marcus placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "We don't need thanks," he said softly. "What matters is that you continue. You are alive and you are strong. That is enough." Virelians watched as the humans moved among them, distributing supplies, giving final instructions, and embracing those they had come to love. Engineers left devices to help purify water and air. Machines designed to run for years without human guidance. Soldiers trained Virelians in defense and rescue, leaving behind strategies that could protect entire districts. Every action was thoughtful, intentional, and caring. Lyra felt tears well up as she walked through the city. She remembered when humans had first arrived, descending from the sky with fire that had terrified them. At first she had wondered if they were destroyers. But now, standing among a world restored, she understood that those flames had been life itself. Fire that cleared danger. Fire that gave birth to hope. Fire that had shown a dying world the strength of humanity. Children ran to the ships, waving and laughing, some of them unsure if they should be excited or sad. Soldiers bent down, lifting children into their arms one last time, speaking comforting words in Virelian. Engineers handed over tools and taught families how to use them. Every farewell was a mix of sorrow and gratitude, but Lyra noticed something extraordinary. No one felt abandoned. The humans had left more than guidance, they had left trust. One of the elders, who had once doubted the humans, stepped forward and bowed his head. "We feared you might conquer us," he said softly, his voice trembling. "But you have shown us a kindness we will never forget. You are not just visitors. You are our allies, our friends, and our guardians." Marcus nodded solemnly. "And we will always be. Earth will always answer the call of life, no matter how far away it is." Lyra watched the ships rise slowly into the sky, engines glowing, fire trailing behind them like molten ribbons. The humans had come from across the stars to save a dying world, and now they left a reborn planet in their wake. The Virelians cheered not just for the departing humans, but for the future they had been given. As the last ship disappeared into the heavens, Lyra turned to the city around her. The streets were bustling with life. Children laughed, elders spoke of rebuilding, and adults worked tirelessly to restore what had been lost. The lessons humans had taught were alive in every hand, every action, every heartbeat. Lyra walked to the edge of a hill overlooking the city, wind brushing her face. She thought of the dark days before the humans came, when fear and despair had been the only companions of her people. And she remembered the fire that had fallen from the sky, the soldiers, the engineers, the humans who risked everything to save strangers on a distant world. A single thought settled in her heart, clear and unshakable. Humanity was not just strong in body or in weapons. Humanity was strong in heart. They had the courage to face the unknown, the strength to protect those weaker than themselves, and the will to turn hope into action even in the darkest hour. Lyra closed her eyes, feeling the wind and the warmth of the city around her. "We asked for help," she whispered, "and they showed us the best of themselves. They have given us a second chance, and we will not waste it." The stars above seemed to shine brighter that night. Somewhere, far across the galaxy, humans would continue their lives, but the bond between the two worlds would endure. Virelia had been given a gift, not just survival, but a lesson in courage, compassion, and hope. Lyra smiled as she looked over the recovering city, her heart swelling with emotion. We are alive, and we will live well, because we were not alone, because they believed in us. And so on a world that had teetered on the brink of death, life flourished again. Firellians rebuilt. Children laughed, rivers ran, forests grew, and the sky shone with stars of hope. Humanity had left its mark, not through conquest but through courage, care, and fire from the sky. Virelia would never forget. And in the hearts of every Virelian, the promise remained clear. Whenever life cried for help, humanity would answer, carrying soldiers, engineers, and fire from the sky.